Analog horror looking ass demon having a crush on you. Ew, you fucking...
He developed a bit of a crush on her and wanted to get physical with her. He proposed this and she refused. Hiroshi was a pretty big bully in this school, one of the only ones actually involved with the younger members of the Yakuza at the time. Usually, nobody dared defy him. He couldn't believe that Junko actually had the gall to turn him down.
I'd be more surprised if
Hiroshi
she didn't.
did not take this well at all. He couldn't believe that anyone would ever reject him. He took it as a complete and total insult. He got together with a few of his wannabe Yakuza buddies and they all hatched a plan to get revenge on Junko. They would get another one of their friends to attack Junko, and then Hiroshi would come to the rescue.
What a piece of
After he won a
shit.
bit of her trust, they could take her wherever they wanted.
Wait, he set up a fake assault so that he could save her?
November 25th of 1988, Junko was riding her bike home from her part-time job when an unknown boy attacked her and knocked her off of her bike. The boy who liked her, Hiroshi Miyano, was conveniently across the street while the whole thing happened. He came to Junko's aid and scared off the random boy. He then offered to escort her home. Everything seemed to be going as planned. While Junko didn't actually trust him, it seemed better than the alternative of possibly being attacked again. She didn't have any idea that Hiroshi harbored any sort of hatred towards her. She wouldn't have imagined that he would be planning anything like this. Hiroshi took Junko into an abandoned warehouse and revealed his Yakuza connections
Oh
to
my
her.
fuck.
He then took his time raping her over and over.
Piece of shit, bro. If I could get my hands on one of these fucking bastards, I would...
Then he took her to a hotel. In the hotel, he called his friends, Joe Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe. From then on, he and his 3 friends took turns assaulting her.
All these motherfuckers look like demons.
Unfortunately, this was not their first time doing this, as they had just recently done it to another girl in the past few weeks. They decided that they were having far too much fun to just set her free again. There was also the possibility that she would call the cops and tell them what happened, and they couldn't have that. The next morning, Hiroshi took Junko to a nearby park, where Joe, Yasushi, and a 4th boy, Nobuharu Minato, were waiting. They learned Junko's address and used it to threaten her,
Oh my
telling her that they
god.
would kill her entire family if she tried to get away.
That's such a fucked situation, dude. Like, when you start... It's one thing if, like, if you're the main one being threatened, like, they're threatening you directly. When your family gets involved, you are literally trapped. Like, you feel like you can't do anything.
The 4 teenage boys then took her back to Minato's parents' home, where they continued to assault her. This is where, for 42 more days, she would be held prisoner.
42 days?
On the 3rd day that Junko was missing, her parents were dealing with the police, trying
42 fucking days of just torture.
to get her found. Knowing this would happen, the captors made her call her parents and tell them that she had run away and was staying with a friend, safe and sound.
Oh, it's 44 total.
She was forced to ask her mom to stop the investigation.
No.
They held Junko captive in the bedroom, forcing her to pose as one of the boys' girlfriend. It didn't take long for the parents to realize that this was a lie. Eventually, they dropped the whole girlfriend act altogether, as it was very clear that they weren't going to get in any trouble. Immediately after arriving at the home, the boys forced Junko into becoming their toy. They beat her relentlessly and raped her countless times a day, often taking turns.
Oh my
They were
fuck,
proud of what they were
bro.
doing, regularly boasting to their friends
Like, they always have a look to them. You're not born into this world looking like this and expected to be normal. Like, I'm sorry.
that they had a woman trapped and ready for their personal use. They invited a load of their friends to come over and have their way with her. In the first few days, at least 30 of them raped her, and at least 100 knew of her imprisonment. Even women were invited to come see the spectacle, with a young girl even being invited to come over and see the prisoner, who then took a pen and doodled on her face. By the day 7 mark, Junko had been already completely stripped of all of her humanity. She was forced to be naked at all times and was constantly beaten and humiliated. They would shove her into the freezer for hours when they were bored with her, only pulling her out when they wanted to assault her again.
Oh.
Nobuharu Minato's brother and parents were living in the same house that she was being held in. His brother did nothing, aside from informing him that Junko might die at this rate. His parents were afraid to intervene as they had seen Nobuharu's violent nature firsthand.
Wait, so did the parents just, like, stop? I know that they said that they forced Junko to tell her mom to, like, stop the investigation, but after a certain point, you have to ignore that word and then just be like, yo, I need to look for my fucking daughter. Let's continue this fucking investigation. Like, where is she?
Also knew of his association with the Yakuza and feared of their possible retaliation. And most disgustingly, they worried about losing their good reputation in the community. After about 10 days of this torture, Junko's body was already starting to fail her. Because of the ongoing, endless beatings, so much blood had accumulated in her sinuses that she could no longer breathe through her nose.
No.
Her digestive system was also beginning to refuse food and water. If she attempted to eat or drink anything, she would instantly vomit.
That's so
This also
fucked,
led to
bro.
severe dehydration. Anytime she would vomit, her attackers would get angry and beat her even further. A vicious cycle that had no end in sight. When the nights got even colder, she was forced to sleep on the balcony of the home in extreme cold temperatures, sometimes near or below freezing. Eventually, one of the men that the attackers would invite over to the house to see Junko would go on to tell someone else about her, his brother. This brother of his ended up informing the police about what was going on at the Minato house. 2 officers were soon dispatched to go check things out.
Finally, holy
Minato's
fuck.
parents came to the door. When the police explained the situation, the parents simply responded that there was no girl in the house. The police took it at face value, thanked them, and left, without ever bothering to check even a single detail.
In all of these cases, it's not even, dude, I thought police were useless in America. Almost every case that we've gone through in Japan, police are just incompetent. They're hired to go investigate, like they're assigned an investigation. They go to the location, and what's the thing that they don't do? They don't fucking investigate. They just ask, is there a girl here? No? Well, alright, I believe you. Alright, goodbye. Sorry for bothering you. Actually, here, let me give you some money. Here, for wasting your time. Okay, bye guys. Do your fucking job. Ask questions. Probe. You're the fucking police.
After 20 days of torture, Junko was rendered completely unable to walk. She had had lighter fluid poured on her legs and set on fire,
Oh my
leaving her
God.
with severe burns. Her legs had also been targeted so severely during the beatings that they were left with severe muscle damage. She was unable to grip anything with her hands anymore, as they had been smashed with dumbbells to the point where her bones were crushed and her fingernails were shattered. Some nights later, the attackers got more rowdy than usual and ended up drinking too much. Junko took this as a chance to try to escape. She crawled down the stairs from the bedroom and reached the phone downstairs. She picked up the phone and began to call the police. The phone rang, and an officer picked up. Just as she was about to speak, Hiroshi came up behind her and grabbed the phone from her hands.
Oh my
He put the receiver
god.
to his ear and said, "I dialed by mistake," hanging up the phone.
You
She was then
asshole
pulled back into
fucker.
the bedroom. She was in complete terror as she would obviously be severely punished for this. And she
I can just imagine like how scary that must have been, because like in that situation you're probably scared to even try and go for help because you're scared that they're gonna kill you. But she mustered up what remaining amount of courage she had and energy, because like, you know, she was being beat for 2 weeks straight. Like I feel like even getting to the phone was a challenge for her physically.
was correct. They punished her by holding her
Probably
down,
crawling.
taunting her by waving a candle's flame all around her. Then they covered her entire body, mainly her legs, in lighter fluid and set her on fire once more. Afterwards, she started
Oh my
convulsing.
god.
The boys told everyone that she was faking it and set her on fire once again, only to put it out shortly after. Somehow, she survived. From this point on, she began begging her captors to just kill her and be done with it. They wouldn't grant her that favor. After being set on fire, they discovered a new way to torture her. The boys would hold her head against the concrete while the others would jump on it. One can only imagine what kind of pain and damage this would have caused. After about 30 days, Junko was no longer able to urinate properly. She had suffered severe damage to her genitals after they had been burned with cigarette lighters. She also had various foreign objects inserted into her, many sharp and jagged. Even fireworks had been inserted into her. The fireworks were not limited to only one orifice, as they were also inserted into her mouth and ears as well. She was left with...
I need a break. Wait, somebody linked their Twitter? Is that him? Is this one of the killers? Oh my god, dude. Oh, dude, I fucking love y'all. Look at the comments that are being left under anything that he tweets. You know what should also be known? The fact that you tortured, raped, and murdered a woman. I'm gonna be a little unhinged. I hope you guys can forgive me for that. Yeah, he should maybe not be here anymore. I'm sorry.
Eardrum damage so severe that she was nearly deaf at this point. Her hands and feet were so damaged that she could hardly move. At best, she could crawl. It took her over an hour to crawl to the bathroom. A later report showed that her brain size was greatly reduced by this point in time. Due to her hellish appearance, the boys no longer found her attractive. They used the same strategy again to abduct and gang rape another 19-year-old woman while she was on her way home from work. During these 44 days of hell, Junko Furuta was forced to withstand the most unspeakable torture and suffering that a person can imagine.
44 days.
What was done to her includes being raped many times every single day, day and night, in all orifices. More than 100 men are believed to have raped her by the end. Sometimes she was raped by up to 12 different attackers in a single day. Constant humiliation. She was forced to be left naked most of the time. Many of the men who raped her also urinated on her. She was forced to pleasure herself in front of the attackers for their entertainment. She was beaten physically every day. She was beaten with golf clubs, iron rods, bamboo sticks, and various other objects. She had dumbbells dropped all over her body and her head stomped against the
I remember that.
first.
They would drop dumbbells like on her abdomen and stuff like that.
She had hot wax poured all over her face with a focus on her eyelids. Her eyelids were also burned with cigarettes and cigarette lighters. She was violated with a long list of various objects shoved into all orifices, including but not limited to bottles, both broken and unbroken, iron bars, scissors, roasting needles, chicken skewers, and more. She was given only the strict bare minimum of food and water. At times, she was forced to eat cockroaches and drink urine.
Dude.
She had fireworks put into all of her orifices, leaving damage and severe burns. She had her left nipple ripped off by a pair of pliers.
This is actually psychotic. At this point, they weren't just torturing. This is some shit that these fucking monsters, no, these aren't boys, that these fucking monsters were born with. That is actually mental illness, like morbid experimentation to fulfill like this curiosity that you have with just fucking something up. I don't know, dude.
She would be tied up flat on the floor and had dumbbells dropped all over her body. The drops on her abdomen were so hard that it caused her to lose all control of her bowels. She was hung from the ceiling and used as a punching bag. She was shoved into a freezer and kept there for hours at a time. Her eyelids were burned with hot wax and lighters when she closed her eyes in fear. Her breasts were stabbed with sewing needles, the needles often being left inside. Her genitals were burned with cigarettes and lighters. She had a hot, lit light bulb inserted into her vagina and moved around into
Oh my fucking god.
By the end, she looked like a completely different person after all of the damage. It was hard to even make out her facial features. Her body was severely damaged and crippled, and she smelled as if she were already rotting. She was continuously heavily bleeding from her genitals from all of the abuse. She wheezed heavily, struggling to breathe from all of the blood accumulated in her sinuses. On day 40, January 1st,
Day 40.
Junko woke up to New Year's Day alone. She spent the day begging to be
I'm gonna cry,
unable
dude.
to move. 3 days later, on the fateful day of the 4th of January, the The boys challenged Junko to a game of Mahjong solitaire and forced her to play. Somehow, even in her condition, she won the game. This infuriated her captors, who treated her to a severe beating with an iron barbell, and then poured lighter fluid all over her arms, her legs, her stomach, and finally her face, dumping lighter fluid even into her eyes. Then they put a candle to her face, igniting it all. She weakly attempted to put out the flames, but didn't have the strength to do so. This final torture lasted for a grueling 2 hours altogether. Already having been in a horrible condition, Junko went into shock and finally died the following day.
No, yeah, at that point she was just begging to be put down.
Minato's brother called him within 24 hours to inform him that
44 days,
the boys
dude.
all rushed over to the house in a panic, fearing what would certainly be a life sentence.
All of you fucks, I want to sit you down on a chair, strap you to where you can't move, just get a fucking barbed bat and just whack the shit out of their heads.
Or even a death sentence. The boys started to freak out, but they came up with a plan. The captors then put her body into a 55-gallon oil drum and filled it to the brim with concrete. A small bit of Junko's long hair was poking out the top of the concrete, something they apparently didn't notice. They disposed of the barrel at a construction site in Koto, Tokyo. Seeing that place now, you'd never imagine something like this was buried there. There was originally a good chance that the police would never find out who did this. There weren't any clues to go on. Luckily, Hiroshi is a moron. While he was being questioned by the police 2 weeks later involving their recent gang rape of the unrelated 19-year-old woman, he got confused and thought the police were talking about Junko, as the cases were so similar.
Jesus Christ. So they were doing this to other girls too. God. So, okay, and also it's good. He's not just a fucking terrifying, ugly-looking piece of shit. He's also a fucking dumbass, so that's good.
And thinking that one of the other boys must have already confessed, he spilled the beans.
Fucking
He realized
idiot.
his mistake, but it was already too late, and he told the police where they had hid the body. Joe Ogura had already been arrested for another unrelated sexual assault case. He was quickly also arrested for Junko's case as well. The other boys were then arrested within the next few days. Later, the drum was finally opened and the concrete was broke open, revealing Junko's long-deceased body in a nightmare-inducing
Oh my
horrific
fuck,
condition.
bro.
Junko's family was notified and told of what happened to her in detail. When her mother heard the details of what was done to her,
I can't even imagine what the parents felt, dude.
An autopsy was performed on Junko, revealing the true horror of what had happened to her. Small bottles were found still stuck in her rectal cavity.
Imagine as the parent hearing something as terrifying, as terrible as this. Your daughter has been found in a concrete